8:48 on the Crosstalk on News Talk 1410 WIZM. It's been a long time that critics of President Obama and his administration have complained about the rising disregard for the rule of law. The president has said it any number of times. I will not wait for Congress. I will act without them. Our guest on the Crosstalk is William Jacobson, a clinical professor of law at Cornell Law School and publisher of Legal Insurrection blog. Bill, good morning. Thanks very much for talking with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Is this unheard of, the President Obama's, I don't want to say disregard, because that may be too strong, but it seems sometimes that he just doesn't care what Congress is going to do or what the American people are going to do because he's the president and he knows better. Is that's not new ground for a president, though, is it?
It's not new ground, and certainly there are presidents in the past who've overstepped a little bit and been usually knocked down by the Supreme Court. I think what concerns people here is simply the accumulation of these sort of events and the attitude that's exhibited, the attitude of, I've got a pen and a phone and I'm going to do what I have to do, and if Congress won't act, well, I'll act on my own. So it's been an accumulation of things, and there's a lot of different ways that's manifested itself. Most importantly on immigration, the concept of his own mini DREAM Act, which we're now seeing the consequences of, that we're not going to enforce the immigration laws, that he will unilaterally decide or his administration will decide who gets to stay and who doesn't, even though there's a law that tells us who gets to stay and who doesn't. And that has resulted in the border being swamped by people from Central America who got the message. And the message was that if you get here, you won't be sent home. And so there's been a lot of things on the Obamacare law. There have been, I think, 23 unilateral changes to the law done by the administration without having Congress do it. And what's most troubling about those is it's not merely, as every president does, modifying how something is enforced in order to make it work better. A lot of these were political decisions to push the pain off beyond 2014 for political reasons. So I think that's what's troubling people. It's a combination of the magnitude of it, the consistency of it, and the attitude that goes along with it.
Interesting that maybe you've already seen this while the president is spending time with the president of France. He was caught off mic, at least not standing in a podium in front of a microphone, but in a comment to the president said, that's the good thing about being president. I can do whatever I want. He didn't think anyone else would hear him say that or videotape him saying that, except that the French president. That's wrong. Now it's viral. And that's the attitude. I'm the president. I can do, if I say it's okay, then it must be okay. President Nixon once said that.
Well, that's why it's so troubling, because it goes against the way our Constitution sets up how we run government. We have three branches of government. There's checks and there's balances, and one of the checks, or perhaps the most important check, is the check on the presidency, because we don't have kings and queens here. We don't have royalty in office. We have people who govern, but it's governed subject to the will of other branches of government. Obviously, the judiciary, which hopefully is not too political, but we know it can be. Yeah. But that's one check. But then there's Congress, too. The president just cannot do whatever he wants to do. That's just not the way our system works. And again, every president has that tension. There isn't a president who hasn't had the tension with how much can I do, but there are very few who so consistently express it in such crude terms, and who actually act on it. And I think that's what's making a lot of people, and it's not just conservative law professors who are concerned about this. There are liberal law professors expressing concern that this is a dangerous path, because liberals, sooner or later, there will be a Republican president again. I know it's very hard to imagine that sitting here right now, but it's going to happen. And what if that Republican president takes the same attitude and said, whatever the law is that Congress passed that you happen to like because you think it serves whatever social purpose you think it serves, well, I don't like it, and I'm not going to enforce it. Or I'm going to change it, and I'm going to enforce it differently. You would hear howls from Democrats in Congress. You'd hear howls from the media, but because it's Barack Obama, because it's a Democratic, liberal president, they're mostly silent on it, and that's very dangerous.
Why is it that they're mostly silent, do you think?
Because they like what he wants to do. If they could do it, if they didn't have that pesky little House of Representatives preventing them from doing whatever they want to do. And if they didn't have that pesky little Supreme Court, which, by the way, has had 12 rulings this past term unanimously against the administration, very unusual. If it wasn't for those pesky little other people in the system who were constitutionally empowered, that they could do whatever they want to do, and they want to do whatever they want to do, but that's just not how our system works.
We hear from activists all the time, regardless of who's in office, after a certain period of time that this president should be impeached or that president should be impeached, and we have heard it about President Obama for a while. Does all of this, I'm the president and can do what I want, and here's some proof, does that rise to the level of impeachment?
I don't think it's at that level now. It's, I think, a political issue now. I think the message needs to be that you need to go out there and vote. You need to take back the Senate. You need to hold things accountable. I'm not saying at some point it might not rise to that level, but I think we really need to reserve impeachment for those, high crimes and misdemeanors, those really outrageous things, as opposed to the, normal political process. Now, if he were to defy, for example, if he were to defy the Supreme Court on an issue, so the Supreme Court struck down his recess appointments, which he tried to sneak in and said, no, you were not, Senate was not in recess. You had no power to appoint these people to the National Labor Relations Board. Now, if he were to go the next step and say, well, it's nice that the Supreme Court has ruled, but I'm going to appoint them and put them in there and have them run the place anyway. Now, if he were to do that, now we're at impeachment level. But the mere fact that he's done things that he's been slapped down by the Supreme Court on, or that he's doing things in the political realm, which, while I do believe it violates his powers, don't rise to a certain level, I think that we're not at that point yet.
Will all of this activity from this president and the Democrat Party take, I don't want to say blame, but will what's going on right now have an impact on the November elections? People simply say, well, he's the president, I don't like him, he's out anyway? Or will they not want to vote Democrat because of the actions of this Democrat president?
The way I see it is that it really will affect mostly turnout. I don't know that it's going to change anybody's view. The people who love him will still love him. The question is, will the people who don't love him and who are upset with what he's doing get motivated to get out and vote? And I think that's really the question. I think it's mostly going to affect turnout as opposed to opinion polling as to his popularity or whether they would vote for him again.
William Jacobson is our guest on La Crosse Talk, clinical professor of law at Cornell Law School. Bill, I got another quick question, but on the sixes here, we jump in with a quick look at the forecast.
We're expecting sunshine for the next few days, slowly warming from today's high of 80 to a high temp of 88 on Monday. It's 64 at WIZM.
7:56. Thanks, Mark. Bill, I'm curious, just your opinion, why the president hasn't taken it upon himself to move without the help of Congress, as he has frequently done before, and end this child immigration issue. He has repeatedly said, there's nothing I can do, the law says. Well, clearly he has done all kinds of things regardless of what the law says. Why can't he step up and say, I'm the president, you kids and your moms, go home?
Well, if it's true, and I've read about this, but I don't claim to be an immigration law expert, but if it's true that there's a provision, I think it was in a 2008 child trafficking law, that prohibits them, if that's true, from returning the children, then they should honor the law. But I don't think we should go along with the attitude that just because he does whatever he wants on some things, that he should do it on everything. But then he should be receptive, and Democrats in Congress should be and the Senate should be receptive. If the House passes a change to that law, then I think that he can't also then say, well, I'm not going to sign it. So I think that if it's true that law prohibits him from repatriating them, and I'm not convinced it does, but if it does, then he should honor the law.
Yeah, it'll be real interesting to see how this all plays out. I wish we had some more time. I appreciate you spending time with us this morning, Bill Jacobson, who is a professor of law at Cornell Law School and publisher of the Legal Insurrection blog. Interesting. I like that conversation.